can try.
So I put all those details in. It says preparing to live stream the meeting.
Now it's live.
Now it's live on your channel.
I believe so.
Well,
Yes, it is.
let's. Is it? Let me. So what?
You
That
can
was
go on
weird.
my channel and check.
I can see it on your channel. We're live. James
Yeah,
and Willem and James's
I
creative
had to
sessions.
open the window first on the YouTube thing. Anyway, this is
So
how you can see we're professional for the nobody watching.
for the technical issues, we had about 2 minutes of live streaming to we don't know where,
Yeah, I mean, maybe they
and
weren't streaming anywhere. I'm not sure.
who knows? But we're here now,
We're here now.
and today's session is all about titles.
Yeah, and I was just telling James, well, you, I guess, I don't know who's watching or not. This thing, it's funny. I should change the titles. I just noticed that actually the last video we didn't have the right title, and this episode we said the overarching thing is going to be about titles, but we'll see what we talk about. To be
Yeah,
honest, I think.
yeah. Well, that's why I set it up as titles.
Yeah.
And you were
And I
telling me,
watched Pig yesterday, which is a movie from last year, 2021, with Nicolas Cage. And I had been told last year that it was a good movie, and I watched it last night, and it was a really good movie. And good title, Pig. And
one word title.
yeah, and I'm going to tell you the premise like I had been told the premise. I'll repeat it to you, sorry. Is that it's a old, well, removed hermit type person, Nicolas Cage, living in a forest with a truffle pig, and somebody comes in the dead of night and steals his truffle pig, and then he goes to find the truffle pig, and it's unexpected. And I had been told from this premise that where the movie goes is quite surprising and unexpected for the premise I just said. Even the premise seems a little bit silly, but I really loved it. I really loved it, and it has the huge merit of being an hour and a half long. Like the credits starts at an hour and 25 minutes. The story's fantastic. The acting's great. It's a very fresh take on a mishmash of genres, and it goes into a topic I love around food, restaurants, chefs, reputation. There's a lot of that going on. And that, yeah. So I think we were just veering on to talk about the new Batman movie. I said, let's just go live.
Yeah, and then technical issues came and went. So we're talking that just to say something about titles and what I know about truffle pigs. So truffles, here's what I know. Truffles, delicacy, grow in the ground. Pigs are trained to find them.
Yeah, there's a certain type of pigs that are trained to find them.
There's a certain type of pig?
Yeah.
You can't choose any pig?
I think it's I think it's a species, particular species of pig.
Oh my god! Okay, so
I think
super
I'm
niche.
Sure. I'm not
super niche, super specialist.
Yeah, and truffles are very expensive. That's one of the reasons.
And okay, right, yeah, that makes sense. So specialist pigs, but who does make me wonder. So somebody discovered that truffles were edible. By how? Seeing an animal
that's like
dig
the
them
same
up
reason
and eat
everybody
them?
tried various mushrooms. So if a pig eats it, I guess I can.
Is a truffle a mushroom? Is it basically
it's a mushroom? It's a mushroom. It's a type of mushroom, but it's a specific type of mushroom that grows underground. It's like a big, depending black or white, because there's white truffle as well and black truffle. And there's different varieties and qualities of truffles as well.
Okay, I didn't know that, but
of course, white truffle from northern Italy is extremely expensive, and a lot of the truffle that you get in, random cooking, a lot of restaurants these days, or what they use to infuse and make truffle oil or truffle infused stuff, tends to be much cheaper truffles that comes from Australia and Australia probably has different varieties and qualities of truffle as well. And the movie takes place in America, and I didn't even know, although it's not that surprising that they had truffles over there. But I guess they started, I was going to say planting them. I don't know how you do that, but given they don't know where they are and they grow at random places.
It must be certain kind of geological conditions.
No, but I know that in Australia, they imported them because it's not native from there, and they started making them there. So I don't know how that works.
Is it native to France then? Where does it
France
start?
and Italy, and maybe other countries, but those are the ones I know about.
So there could be a whole. I was going to say seam of truffles, but that's not right. A whole what, like a
Oh, there's a,
vein.
sure, yeah,
Well, I don't know. Do you know what the word? I don't. Do you know what the
I
word
don't
I'm
know.
looking for is? Like a deposit. There we go. A
Yeah,
deposit
there
of
are certain
truffles.
regions where you can find them
Okay. Wow.
originally, and then they started making, and I'm guessing how they, I don't know how they make them, but I'm guessing they like located other places that had the same properties of the forest where they grow in the first place and said, well, maybe they can grow here. I don't know much about
It's
this.
pure guesswork. But to go back to titles,
Yes, let's
no,
go back to titles.
and the premise of this film, Pig. It sounds like it's about this guy who has his best friend is his pig, and he gets stolen, and then he has to
Yeah,
go on the hunt,
yeah,
and he loses his no, it doesn't lose his mind, but he goes on the hunt.
yeah, exactly.
Vengeance. Speaking of vengeance, seamless link to the Batman.
Yes.
So I
I had the
deliberately
link with the length of movies and the cartoon you sent, which was fantastic. Sorry, I
yeah.
cut you off.
So I got that cartoon. Is it a cartoon or a meme? I don't know what it is.
It's
It's
both, I
it's
guess.
both. From my wife's cousin's wife.
Should we show it on screen?
Have you got it?
It's probably not
Can you
fun.
share it? All right.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's so good. I got it. I saw it ages ago. Right.
Oh,
so,
did you?
Yeah. And then I had to ask her because she put it on her story on Instagram. And I was like, can you send me that cartoon or tell me where you got it from? Because it's so good.
Yeah.
And then
So here's the cartoon. I'm sharing my screen.
Yeah, I can see.
So obviously where the image it comes from is Watchmen.
Yeah.
And this, just in case you can't read it, it's 1989. I'm 8 years old. I'm watching a darker, grittier Batman movie. It is 2005. I'm 24 years old. I'm watching a darker, grittier Batman movie. It is 2022. I am 40 years old. I am watching a darker, grittier Batman movie. And it so works. It's fantastic.
It's so good. It's so good.
So I don't think it's much spoiler, but in case, actually, should we be careful about mindful of spoilers for the Batman? So yeah, this is going to be
I won't spoil it.
Mostly non-spoilery conversation, but just in case you don't like conversations about a movie you haven't seen, we're going to talk about the Batman. But it came out a couple of weeks ago, so I think we've both seen it, right?
Yeah, we've both seen it. Right. And I managed to avoid spoilers, even though I'm a teacher with loads of teenagers in school who've seen Batman. Oh, I was going to get very angry with anyone who spoiled it, and none of them did, which was very good of them.
Yeah, and I mean, I'd seen bits of the trailer, and I was like, "Yeah, it looks like they're going very gritty and dark." Which, anyway, yeah.
So I saw this cartoon from Watchmen, and the fact it's Watchmen works on many levels as well for me.
Yeah.
So at the beginning of the film, as I'm sitting there with my wife, I show her the cartoon.
Oh.
And then and that's when I posted it to the WhatsApp group that we have, and she laughed, I laughed. And then we watched the film. And part of the reason we're bringing this up is because Pig, 1.5 hours, story told, done. Now, I haven't seen it yet, but that's appealing. And then we were just talking before about John Carpenter's films, Assault on Precinct 13, 1.5 hours, done. Complete story, lean, clean, precision filmmaking, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Batman, this one called The Batman, it's 3 hours.
It's 3 hours long. It's like there are so many blockbuster movies now that apparently can't be made in less than 2.5 hours.
And I started to get a cramp in my gluteus maximus partway through, and I'm like fidgeting. So, but
it's a good movie, but
it's a good movie. It's a good movie.
It's a good movie, but it's also, I mean, I'm going to give the main thing is just what's in the cartoon. It's the photography is beautiful.
Yep.
The way they brought the city to life is great, although super dark again, like even darker than other things and grittier. Which is like, how did they even do that? And I'm like, oh yeah. It's now looking back, I'm looking at this one and I'm like, oh yeah, the Batman Begins is not that dark compared to this one.
Literally and metaphorically.
Yeah, but otherwise, I'm also at the same time, I'm like, is this really adding to the whole Batman thing, or is just I mean, it clearly is a money making exercise. It's well done.
It's very.
Do I care that much about this Batman? No, not that much. I mean, it's okay.
I did wonder if it was a generational thing. Like, there's going to be a whole generation of, and it's 15. It's a 15 certificate in. So the previous ones haven't been. They've been 12s, or like Tim Burton's was PG. I played the trailer for Tim Burton. No, Tim Burton's was 12. I played the trailer for Tim Burton's one for my 15-year-olds in school.
Awesome.
And I watched the trailer and I was like, wow, there's cheese to this. There's a level of cheese and campiness to this that I did not appreciate when I watched it when I was like 13.
I went this only time I went to a all-night movie event at the IMAX in London. It was an all-night Batman thing that I did with a friend. So we watched Batman, well, the first one, Tim Burton, this one. The second one, which is it Batman Returns? I can't remember the name now.
It's the one with the Riddler. You mean Jim Carrey's the Riddler?
No, not that one. That's Batman Forever. That's Schumacher. They didn't play those.
That was the third one, Batman Forever, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And the second one with Michelle Pfeiffer and Catwoman.
The second one was with Michelle Pfeiffer. That's still Tim Burton, and then it switched, and it went
Joel
to
Schumacher.
Yeah, Joel Schumacher, and Batman Forever is Val Kilmer, and then there's Batman and Robin with George Clooney.
I never saw
that
Batman
one goes
Robin.
Extremely campy and ridiculous, and it's very bad. But anyway, they didn't play that. So it was for the release of The Dark Knight, and so they played the first Batman, the second Tim Burton, Batman Begins in IMAX, and then The Dark Knight. So it's 4 movies.
That's trippy.
Yeah, it was an all-night thing. It was tiring, but it was fun.
But the titles themselves, I'm going to keep bringing it back to titles. So
Batman, is it Batman Returns? No,
the Michelle Pfeiffer one.
Yeah, I can't remember now.
Christopher Nolan is Batman Begins,
Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, and The Dark Knight Rises. No.
Yeah.
It is the last one.
Yeah.
And then there's Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, which are the ones that people like put to the side.
Batman Forever, I think is really good.
I have you seen that recently?
Not recently, but
I really enjoyed it at the time.
I thought it was amazing.
Campy. Not as campy as Batman and Robin.
But Jim Carrey as the Riddler, I think, was. But
genius. That's where this is where there was an opportunity to go way grittier and darker than those ones. Because they went very much in the direction of the Adam West TV show.
Well, that's the other thing I did. I played my 15-year-olds in my form a trailer montage of the opening credits of the 60s Batman.
Awesome.
And their faces were hilarious. They were like, "What is this? What is?" One of them knew. He was like, "Yeah, it's terrible. They have like comic book stuff in it. Pow, bang, kablam." And I watching the opening credits, I remembered it because they used to repeat it on like in the 80s.
Yeah, I watched it when I was a kid.
It was good. It was really
I loved
good.
it. I was a small kid. I loved it when I was 5. I mean,
I probably loved it when I was 5 too, but it was really good. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. But seeing how everything's gone darker and grittier. It's so true. That cartoon is so true. So true.
Yeah.
I'm going to loop back to dark titles now.
Sure.
Tenuous link, kind of. You challenged me to write a short story called Dark Splendor on the Green.
Oh, I completely forgot that.
Now, I haven't written it, but I think my idea for what I'm going to write is so good. I'm not going to tell you what it is. I am so proud of the idea that I thought of for Dark Splendor on the Green that when it's written, I'm going to be very proud of it. Now, this is the thing about titles that I want to say is that I spend a lot of time as a teacher writing exam answers. Mm-hmm. And what I found is that, in effect, the exam question is the title. Because it's so prescriptive, because it's so like, this is what you have to write about, it means that my blog writing and my style of writing tends to be, I suppose I'm much more of an architect than a gardener.
Yeah.
I
You
tend,
plan. You
I
tend to
tend,
plan first.
I tend towards the architect. But what I find is that as long as I have the plan, that gives me the space to play. So I have written stuff where I know what I want to say, and then as I write it, it changes.
Mhm.
It changes, especially with fiction.
Yeah.
But usually when I've written short stories or whatever it is, and I promised I would post some of my short stories on my blog, and I haven't done that either. But I find that or most of the time when I write stories, I have a concept or an idea based on something. And your title, I thought about it, and then bang, it appeared. I was like, okay, that's what I'm going to write. How I'm going to write it, I don't know yet. But I know that once I start writing, it will emerge, and it might take on life of its own and go in a different direction. But because I thought about it in advance from the title, it makes the writing much easier.
Yeah.
Now, when you wrote your short story, did you have a title?
No. I
Did
just
you?
went
That's what was so
completely.
funny.
That one, I went completely. So from the, picking back from the conversation of the architect and gardener, I went from, I started writing. And then I started writing an idea, just whatever came to mind okay, I need to start writing. That's it. And I started writing. And then I gave it a title, yesterday when I finished it. So I promised last time that I would have a finished first draft to send to you, which then on a day-to-day basis, I didn't write as much as I think I should have, if that makes sense.
That makes sense.
Right. I finished Atomic Habits as well. Could talk about that as well at some point, which I found to be a very annoying book, but also good. And
I finished the Glass Bead Game finally after yonks of reading. Really good book.
So
you were writing a little bit.
Yesterday I thought, okay, I need to finish it and send it. And I was in the middle, and I was like, okay, I was writing a bit more, trying to get to the end. And I did. And I was like, you know what? Okay, this is not perfect whatsoever. It really needs a lot more work. It probably needs some more, or could do with some more filling, definitely some rewriting. But I think I can say that I have it finished, which was part of the exercise.
Yeah.
The exercise was that for me, was to finish something, to say this has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's complete. It's not long. It's less than 3,000. It's just under 3,000 words. It takes like 25 to 30 minutes to read, something like that. So yeah, but I don't know if you had time to read the rest of it.
Yeah, I've read it.
So what do you think? Do you think it has a beginning, middle, and end? Do you think it's a draft of something that you could say it's a complete story?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, still needs a lot of work. You can criticize a lot of stuff. And I was like, so that's why I thought, okay, rather than telling James I'm postponing what I said and I didn't finish it, I'll just finish it in the way that I can right now with the time that I have yesterday. And without spending the night on it, because I just didn't want to.
Here's there are a few things in this. So I'm definitely, I like this idea of architect and gardener. I am definitely the architect. You are definitely the gardener. You started.
I started planning in the middle of the story.
I think that's so funny. So the other thing I want to emphasize.
I've written about a third of it, and then I was like, okay, what am I doing with this thing? What is
it? Pure gardener. You're like an extreme gardener because you're.
Well, it depends. I mean, if I write something else, I might do more planning in advance. But I have a lot of stuff that I can go revisit and make stories out of that are unfinished.
But you wrote that you started writing, and you had no title.
No, and I didn't know what I was writing until I wrote it.
I think that's so hilarious. Now, what was the title?
I called it Urban Purpose.
Which I didn't realize. I didn't remember that.
I brainstormed titles yesterday.
It's a nice. It rolls well. Urban Purpose. That's nice.
I can give you what other titles I was thinking of.
Yeah, please do.
Around that theme, the theme that was the theme. So yeah, I wrote about a third of it. Then I came back to the beginning, and I was like, okay, what I literally wrote. What is it I'm writing about? Oh no, I first wrote what am I writing about first. I did do that before I started writing.
Okay.
I forgot. I wrote just some notes, and I said, what is it I'm writing about? Question. Next thing, some authors I love and admire. what do I enjoy, what do I know about, because it's one place to start. And then I started writing.
What were the authors that you wrote?
I wrote some authors I love in it: Terry Pratchett, Neil Gaiman, Stephen Erickson, Bill Watterson, Jim Butcher. Jim Butcher's the author of those series of like detective, magician detective
Oh yeah,
stories
yeah, yeah,
that I
yeah, yeah,
talked
yeah,
about that are
yeah.
that are that are really fun, that are really fun and easy to read. And he was very popular and successful with those. Surprisingly, it's not what he wanted to be successful with, and it's not what he wanted to do. But there's 17 of those.
I
They're
should
read very
probably,
quickly, but they're really a lot of fun. There's a lot
I
of
should read.
action.
I think I should read them because
Yeah,
I'm
you
trying
should.
to, I'm trying to get my book count number up, which is very
Oh, this
low.
is exactly the kind of stuff. I got my book count number up last year by reading those. They're really fun, engaging. I read them in a few days
Okay,
every time. They're
okay.
not. They're short. They're very easy to read.
Did they make you laugh out loud?
Um, yeah, actually, some. It's definitely smirk and smile for sure.
Okay, good.
A
I'm
couple of
looking
laugh
something
out
up.
louds. It's not comedy, but there are comedy lines. He
Yeah.
has one line. He has one-liners, and he's very sarcastic. The protagonist.
Okay.
So actually, to the point where a little bit later, you're like, okay, sometimes you're like, okay, you're a bit too sarcastic now. But
So you wrote these. You had all that basic
okay,
setup,
so then
and
I
then you
wrote.
started
Do you
writing.
want me to? Do you want me? I can tell you what else I wrote, but it's okay. And then I started writing, and then I came back and I said, okay, well, maybe let's start some structure. I literally wrote maybe, so I'm using Roman has dots, and then you go back to the next time. I said maybe some structure. Now that I've had a random, this is what I literally wrote. Adding this Saturday, 22nd of January. Now that I'm randomly added sentences and paragraph from a random impulse idea, maybe I could think of some structure. And I gave it a one-liner of what is this, what's going on here. And I guess I could give it, it's a description of what the story's about. A sleepless tech worker gets a lot more than he could ever imagine after buying into a weird personal development scheme.
Now, okay, so I'm going to give you some of my thoughts on this,
And
on
then
your story.
then I said, what's the beginning, middle, and end? And that was not exactly finished. I had a few different endings possible. And then I added some like a who, where, when, why notes,
Oh,
which was
yeah.
incomplete, but I started something. And then possible titles were Urban Shadows, Finding My Way in the City, City Mapping, Purpose Mapping, The Vagaries of Purpose Mapping, Urban Purpose Mapping, and I pulled out the mapping side of things.
Urban Purpose. What was the first title you said?
Urban Shadows.
I quite like that.
Yeah, but that was a little bit giving away the bit of give. And there's a couple of other titles I didn't say because I thought they were too.
I don't think it gives anything away because I like so.
It doesn't
I
necessarily give anything away. It's a little bit more appealing, perhaps.
I read. So how much? What percentage through would you say you were with the version that I first read?
About half ish. Oh no! Wait, sorry.
No.
What's your question?
So you sent me a drop the version before it was finished.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago.
How far complete do you think that was?
When I sent it,
Yeah.
I thought I was still in the beginning, but it's impossible to say how much it was because I hadn't written the rest.
Because when I
A
wrote
quarter to a third in, not the middle yet.
okay, so
Still the beginning.
here are some thoughts on what you wrote on the short story.
Then it went to the end very fast, but anyway.
So I felt like I was reading a Black Mirror episode as I was reading it. And I wanted to know how it ended. I felt it. Then it was also like semi biographical as well because I could hear your voice. I could hear you in it. And then you mentioned
Which it wasn't really, but
I know, and you mentioned a mutual friend as well. And I was like, oh, okay. Then we'll use his name anyway. It's not really
did I? Oh, I
yeah,
didn't even realize I did that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. The and even the
I should have
way
spent more time rereading it yesterday, but I thought, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'll just now I have something to work on, which is the draft. But I thought I'll send you the draft as is. It's really raw, but I'll just send it as is.
yeah, because you're an infinite tweaker. So the and then definite clear beginning, clear middle. I did feel like it needed a stronger ending. I like
It's
a
I when I was writing it yesterday, I realized, well, this is difficult to write a good
yeah,
end.
yeah. At the same
And I
time,
just decided I was like, okay, do I really, and sheer laziness, I spent a bit of time on it and I was like, I really want to go out. I'll just finish it.
at the same time, it could have also been, apart from an episode of Black Mirror, I felt like it could have also been the opening scene to something, the opening of something, like the
Sure.
first chapter of something,
Sure.
like it was setting something up. Or you know how like Tales of the Unexpected and Black Mirror and the Twilight Zone, they're all kind of or American Horror Story, they're all kind of anthology stories, separate stories set within the same universe.
Yeah.
I felt like it was one of those. Like you could
And I
have a
have a lot
series of
of
short stories
I
that
have a
could
lot
be
of ideas and bits and pieces of short stories and paragraphs that could go in that same style. One
because
thing that
it
was
was
really interesting to get to the end I had in mind
yeah.
was that so I wrote the whole thing in the first person.
Mhm.
And then towards the end, I was like, but I might want the perspective to change, but then the whole story is in the first person. So would it be, I'm going to have to try and write it to see how it feels. But I was thinking maybe it's not going to work if I suddenly give it a third person perspective when the whole thing's in the first person. It might make no sense. So how do I finish this while still it being in the first person and respecting the idea I had in mind and try it out?
You could do it.
Probably. I mean, I have to try, and I didn't do it yesterday. I thought, okay, let's stick with the first person and see how it feels.
He's
Yeah,
I say the character's definitely what I liked is the character's journey. There's definite sense of the character's going somewhere.
yeah,
There's been a journey. I think the title you've given it reflects it. I think you also speak to some kind of existential stuff that everybody's been experiencing through COVID and lockdown, but then also the bigger trends of like, what am I doing with my life and my job? And I couldn't, the other thing I liked about it is I couldn't tell if it was set now or the near future or a
yeah,
further future. I really liked that fact that it
yeah.
wasn't
That was on
placed.
purpose, and I was
Was
like
it?
wondering,
Oh,
yeah,
that's
yeah, that was on
great.
purpose.
It was, I really, really liked
It
that.
was, and it was purposely vague, and also this is where I can add a lot more. I think probably to anyway. I'm glad you liked that. It's cool.
I did. I really, really liked that because you're managing to
I was
speak about
wondering
some
if it
big
was too
themes.
vague or if
No,
it could add a little bit more details, but adding more details would like place it. But I wanted to, as at the same time, give it like weight as a sense of place, but also undetermined, that you'd be unable to say if it's today, tomorrow, in 10 years, or in the far future.
and not only about the time, the place. It's any urban sprawl.
Yeah. So that if you've also been to an urban sprawl, you can identify with this one way or
Yeah,
another.
no, it was. I liked it a lot.
Cool.
And the ending, they need. I think there needs to be a bigger payoff, maybe.
Yeah.
Unless you're going for that sense of, oh well. Because for example, when I went through a period in my early to mid 20s reading loads of Douglas Coupland. So I
I don't know who it is.
he wrote Generation X. I actually read Shampoo Planet first, which was his second
Oh,
book.
yeah, I see who it is. I've never read him. Okay.
Yeah, Generation. I really like his writing. I think his book Girlfriend in a Coma is, I think, one of the best books I've ever read. And I've read it a couple of times. I think it's amazing. He wrote Microsurfs and he wrote J-Pod, but then they started to get very similar. But the one book, I can't remember the title of it. It was about a beauty contest. The phrase, I don't think I came up with this phrase. I'm pretty sure his books read like you're watching TV. This is pre-streaming services. I said this. You read 50 pages and you're like, how have I read 50 pages? Like so much stuff has happened, but I don't remember it. But he's intentionally going for that effect.
Yeah, I like those kinds of books. I mean, the detective magician type stuff, the Dresden Files is called.
Yeah.
That I was talking about, that has a little bit of that effect.
Yeah. And I think your short story has some of that kind of effect.
I wouldn't be surprised if I end up writing in some way that I enjoy reading. For example, I think I mentioned last time that I started, and I'm going to force myself to read some more of it because I want to get through it as fast as possible. Reading Light in August from William Faulkner.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Faulkner, and I'm not particularly enjoying it. But it's the weird effect of I'm appreciating the writing, and I'm literally highlighting passages and sentences, going like, "Wow, this is beautifully, superbly written."
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, I'm not enjoying. I'm like, I have no idea why you're. I don't care about any of the characters. I don't know what the story is. I don't know where you're going with this. I don't know what is it you're trying to say. And I'm in a third way in the book, and I'm like, I'm forcing myself to read. I'm not taken by what the author's writing, and I don't know if it's me or if it's like I don't like literature, or I don't know what it is.
This is interesting because I had the same or a similar experience because I just finished reading The Glass Bead Game by Herman Hesse, and it was recommended to me, and it's a beautiful, poetic, well-written piece, and it has that similar thing of like it's set sometime in the future, probably quite a distant future, because he talks about ages, and I wasn't sure what I was reading because there was layers to it, and I couldn't, because and maybe this both of us, like sometimes when I'm reading, I want the title to give me something. I want to feel like I know where it's going. I couldn't see where this was going, and I have a feeling it was intentional.
Yeah,
it was a kind of. So have you read whatchamacallit, Heart of Darkness?
No.
And but you've seen Apocalypse Now?
Yeah.
And you know Apocalypse Now is based on Heart of Darkness.
Yeah.
So Heart of Darkness is written with a narrator telling a story. And The Glass Bead Game was written a bit like that. It's like someone explaining the biography of someone over time and their life, and it's fundamentally it's this kind of weird meditation on someone's life, but also life in general. And I couldn't. It took me. I kept going with it, and I'm glad that I did, because exactly like you're saying with with Faulkner's book, you're like, what? How? I don't seem to care about this. What's happening? And then at some point, it clicked with me.
Yeah.
Glass Bead
I'll
Game.
see. And the other interesting thing is that Faulkner is known for having, I think, created or popularized, I'm not sure, the genre known as Southern Gothic.
Okay.
I think it's a genre, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And because I'm not sure what's going on, I'm focusing perhaps too much on so anyway, there's a lot of race commentary and stuff in the book, but it's not commentary. That's what I'm wondering about. I don't know how much this is just he's writing this way because this is how they behaved in the middle of the segregation, and it's like happening in the 19th century, or if it's a particular commentary or comment on society in some way, or if it's just that's how it was, so that's how he's writing at the time. Did you see what I mean?
I do see what you mean, because is it a child of its time, or is it a deliberate commentary on the time that it's set?
Yeah, and if it's a commentary, I don't know what the commentary is. If anything, it's probably just racist, if it is one.
Yeah,
but I'm not sure.
Maybe
it's
both
really
of us
difficult to say. And as I said, it's because I'm like a little bit confused about where it's going and what it's talking about. I'm focusing a little bit too much on N-words and stuff about, like, people being Black and segregated. And I don't know if I'm focusing too much on that. I'll see if it keeps going. If it keeps being only about that, or not only, but a lot about that I'm like, all right, well, it's taking a lot of space. So I don't know. And somebody and I'm curious, I was meaning to read like the Wikipedia page of Faulkner to find out more about where he comes from, who he is, and why he wrote about, mostly, as far as I understand, wrote about small towns and places in southern US. But I don't know if he's a big city guy or if he lived in a small town in the south of the country. I don't know. From a class perspective, I'm guessing he was upper class, but I don't know.
It might be that we do think, maybe it's because like,
I'm colored by where I'm coming from and the age I was brought in, of course.
Yeah, so I think it might be that the ages that we are, and we watch a lot of films and we think about a lot of stuff and we read a lot of books, we overthink what we read about.
Yeah, but the thing is, if I was really plunged in, if I was really enjoying what I was reading, I wouldn't think about it.
True. That's very true. True. Yeah.
That was my point in the first place.
Yeah.
And I'm not enjoying it so far. Something might click, so I'm going to force myself to keep reading it. I was talking about it with a friend and wondering, should I keep reading it? But I feel like it's such a famous book and a classical author. I feel like I should read the whole thing to have an opinion rather than stop. And then if I stop, then I can't have an opinion about it, I feel like.
Have you had that experience with any other books?
Yeah, for sure.
Like,
so for example, and I can't remember if I talked about this on the show in one of our live conversations. Kurt Vonnegut.
Oh yeah, you did. You mentioned.
I did mention that.
I haven't read. I need to.
And there's small books.
I feel like
small books.
should read. I should read some Kurt Vonnegut.
Tim Ferriss keeps banging on about him, and a lot of people consider him to be one of the best authors. Just amazing.
Yeah.
And I read 2 of his most famous books. I took ages to get through them because I was just I didn't care about what was going on. I really did not. I read Dead-Eye Dick first, and it took ages to read it. And then I thought, okay, I'll still try another one a few years later. And I read Slaughterhouse-Five, and I was like, I don't know what I'm reading. This is stupid. I didn't like it. I don't know why everybody thinks he's amazing. I don't get it. And I'm like, maybe I'm stupid, or maybe I just like what I like. I don't know.
What's
No, and I feel it's good from time to time to read stuff that brings me out of my comfort zone, out of what I like. And that's also why I thought, okay, I'll read some Faulkner. As you know, I have so many. There's a lot of literature and classical literature, may it be in French or English, that I haven't read. That I'm like, okay, some classical authors should be read, and that's why I'm like, all right, let's try Faulkner. And it was out of, I think I mentioned this already, but I was watching a long form interview of a French author and political figure who wrote fiction and nonfiction. And I read one of his nonfiction books, and at the end of the interview, he was asked what are 3 books that you recommend to people, and he's like, well, I'm going to recommend some literature to young people, and he said, well, you should totally read Light in August from Faulkner. It's one of my favorite books ever, and so I was like, all right, look, I'll try that. That's how I bought it.
I love the idea of I'm mostly going on recommendation. I really like that idea. Yeah. I think it's great, and I've got such a massive pile of books next to my bed. Yeah. There's too many books.
I'm glad I finished Atomic Habits. I found it a very annoying book, but it has a lot of good techniques and advice. But as books go, I'm like, okay, that's the one I've read this year. I don't want to read any more like that. What I mean by that, it's so formulaic. I mentioned it before.
It is.
And ultimately, it's like paper thin, what's really useful in there. And then there's a lot of stories of many that I've read before in other similar nonfiction books. Except that they use these examples. It's like each chapter has, here's the story of somebody that justifies why my technique is interesting. In 1964, this person did this and that, and they were this famous person. And a lot of those stories I'd read before, heard about before. Except they were used for other purposes in other nonfiction books to prove other points, similar kind of points.
Okay.
And then he gives you a piece of advice or technique, such as, start small or do something every day or whatever. And then at the end, we'll repeat you the points of the book, of the chapter. So it's just, all of it is fluff. So much of this book is just fluff for me. And it's both good and I think I mentioned before, the topic is a little bit, it gets me on edge and reactivated because I'm not the best planner and productivity and organization person. So it just lights up areas where I think I should do better and be better. And I've started implementing some of the stuff from the book, so that's good. So it's in that sense, it's a good book, but I also found it really just annoying to read because I'm like, oh my God, what am I reading? So annoying. It was formulaic and there's no thinking in this whatsoever. I really dislike it. And I dislike the advice, but it's also good advice. It's interesting because I felt like, we know about when we mentioned landmark courses before.
Yeah.
And they talk about the fact that, and if you did the 3-day course, the forum, that the content is there and it's paper thin. If it was in a book, it would not be a very big book. You would have to fluff it up.
Yeah.
And you would not get the same value out of the thing at all. So similarly, a lot of those self-help, organization, personal development books follow the same type of format and would be probably more effective as a course that you follow. And I believe he does offer courses, James Clear. Or he's got a newsletter and a bunch of tools and videos. I guess I'm guessing he offers courses. I don't know.
I haven't seen. I don't think he does videos. I know he offers courses.
Maybe not.
And I do like his newsletter.
Yeah, so I heard a lot about his newsletter. Anyway, but I also just find it annoying because he's like, yeah, I wrote 2 articles a week, and I'm like, fuck, I should do that.
By the way, have you done your article?
This week I did 1 post and I didn't write an article. And it was funny. I was like, I should post something. And I started, as I said before, opening a bunch of tabs and thinking about, and then I was like, okay, wait a minute. I'm going to spend too much time on this. Let's just keep it really simple. I saw something yesterday. So that was on the 9th, the day after International Women's Day. So there was a lot of stuff that I saw of activities of advertising communications for the day. And I thought, okay, I saw this thing yesterday. I'll just repost it. It was really good. And I felt like a copier, lazy imitator plagiarist by doing that. But it was actually massively popular because and this is, again, I remember, even though I was like, yeah, people have seen this before because obviously it was buzzing like crazy yesterday. But I reposted it in French to French groups and they hadn't seen it.
Oh, wow.
And a lot of people liked it on Facebook and LinkedIn. So I was like, okay, I actually probably lose people way, by writing articles that mix and mash topics together that are coming up on the day. I probably am too complicated. And I suspect that I'm losing people very fast. They don't follow the same train of thought.
Don't you think that?
So anyway, my point was I should keep it simple. And wanted to write another article and I didn't. A little bit longer, just because this was just literally 1 short paragraph with a photo, and the photo was the impact because it was an image of a really good campaign. But don't you think
your perspective on things, however, is unique? We all have a unique perspective on things because we all got unique lives and experiences and whatever. So the bilingual or trilingual, however many languages, like the international man of mystery that you are, the way that you can link things together like that gives you something interesting to say that people would
maybe. But I probably, this is probably going to sound super arrogant, but I think that sometimes or oftentimes I probably go overthinking too complicated in ideas that I should probably keep them a little bit simpler in what I'm mixing and matching together.
Yeah,
to share an article. Is my only point.
I can,
and then again,
I think I'm the same because I think I do overcomplicate things occasionally. Yeah. But the even though my job is about simplifying things, but you've got something there. What I found interesting about what you just said was the link between English and French culture.
Yeah.
Or, like, I don't know how to say it.
But the thing is, so this is, and I've talked about this before, I tend to think that I'm consuming a lot of information. And I assume that everybody knows the same because, but they don't.
No, they don't.
But when I share something, so I first think, okay, well, I know all this, so I have to go several steps more interesting. But actually, like the baseline is it's like I need to go simpler than what my baseline is, if that makes any kind of sense.
That makes sense to me.
Whereas I would go, okay, let me just mix and match those two big important events and give a new idea about business. And then I share that, and most people, I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't care. Then I lose people, probably. Or people are like, vaguely interesting, but the population I'm reaching is much lower than, hey, look at this cool ad, which was what works on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah.
And going, yeah, you're right. I'm like, okay, I'm consuming a lot of stuff in English and sharing it if it's good on a French platform. And it, in this case, was a powerful set of ads that made a lot of sense. It works.
Because speaking about the regular writing thing, doesn't Seth Godin post every day?
Yeah, he posted every day for like many, many years, probably still does. And it was even just a short paragraph of stuff.
It's not he doesn't write very long posts, but whenever I read a post,
but he publishes small
that's
books
really
usually.
Good. He what?
Publishes small books. His books are small. Most of his books are like
I haven't read any of his books actually, but whenever I read one of his posts, I do think that's really good.
Yeah, no, he's great.
And the only way to get like that is to write a lot.
Yeah. And I don't write enough. I should keep writing more. Anyway, yeah.
There's a hard one. So I'm gonna have Dark Splendor on the Green done by next week.
Okay, great.
And I've written a load of school reports. I have done a load of marking. So I feel like I've got a bit of headspace to be able to write something.
I technically had a lot of time this week. I should. So I spent some time looking at how to implement stuff and advice from Atomic Habits in my Rome research.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked up a little bit more on how to use it. I reminded myself of some notes that I had in Evernote, and I copied a few more. I hadn't opened Evernote in a long time, but I have a lot of notes in there that I would like to import. Anyhow, so I was looking at that. So geeking out on how to do my to-do notes in a way that works for me. So for example, one of the things from Atomic Habits, as you know, is a habit tracker.
Yeah.
And I can build a habit tracker, and I was reading posts on how to build a habit tracker, which is basically a table with tick boxes that you tick a box every day. But the thing that I didn't like about that is that I would have to go look at the table, if that makes sense. The habit tracker, you keep in touch and look at it on a daily or weekly basis, right?
Yep.
Unless I have it somewhere, like, I could
Fridge
on
door.
a board, or I could easily forget it, is what I mean. It doesn't fit within my habits. But what does is when I open Rome is set up on daily notes. So it has it opens a page every day you open it. There's just a blank page with the dates. That's it. So what I started doing, and I don't know if this is the best way to do it, but it's what seems to work for me now. If I built another page with ticks with the day, and so every day I see not only the dates, but then I have the tick box for every one of the habits I want to do, either weekly or daily. Nice. If I put the date, but then it's a little bit, the tedious part is I have to prepare a page with lines with every day in advance, so that it would show up later. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I'm big fan.
So anyway, it took a while to look at and do this, and I did it for the month. I'm testing right now. I'm trying to find if there's a better way to do it. But
yeah, I have it in a journal. I'm a big fan of habit trackers. I use them a lot.
Yeah, and I have the James Clear journal. I can check it out, but it's been on a shelf for since last year, since I bought it. And the Mind Journal, I haven't touched in months. I don't even know where it is. It's somewhere I don't have a big apartment, but it's somewhere. So anyway, all that to say, I'm very good at forgetting that. But what I do have in place is looking at my room every day and journaling. So that's somewhere where I'd be like, oh yes, right.
I think it might be almost time to wrap it up. That's how
I think so. And, yeah, I agree.
And apart from wrapping up, I also have a suggestion for next episode. Great. Maybe for next episode, we talk about ideas and capture tools and note taking and collecting information.
If you want, but we've done that before, and And I had offered to play a role-playing game.
Oh yeah, you had. Oh yeah, you had.
I was on that.
Okay. Well, I do think we should do something about how you garden.
Okay.
The how of gardening, and how I might architect.
I don't have much how of gardening just yet, so I think I should try stuff before I go into talking about it.
Well, you could. I think you should possibly talk about Rome a bit, like how you use it, journaling, how you have 50. How many tabs have you got open right now?
I don't know. A lot.
something about like thought processes and capturing thought processes, that might be quite cool.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we've done this before, but okay.
But I mean, purely from the point of view of writing. Thinking
yeah,
about
I mean,
writing.
it's just the point of view of writing is the stuff where I did gardening is very quickly. It's when I had an objective or a support system to do it in. So a lot of the writing lately I've done is just bits and pieces that I did in writing meetings with the writers group meetup that I have that I'm part of in Paris, where it's 5-minute writing prompts. So it's really just exercises and to have fun. So I have some of those that are ideas that could become stories that could. I did a lot of writing at the time I was getting ready to do NaNoWriMo, and that was already in 2014. So it's a while back. It's 8 years ago.
Did you do it?
Yeah, I did it.
Oh, you did it. Okay.
Yeah, I did it. It made no sense whatsoever. Just the draft of that thing makes no sense. I was getting ready and I wrote a lot of stories that I can pick up again because they're just bits and pieces of have unfinished short stories. While I was, my goal was to practice and I was looking for what I was going to write about, because a lot of the advice is, given the NaNoWriMo is National Novel Writing Month, in case people don't know. And the commitment is you write a short novel from the 1st to the 30th of November. And the goal is to write quantity rather than quality, to have a first draft to work from at the end of it, because most writing advice is like one way or another. Without a first draft, you don't have matter to work from. You need a first draft. Before the first draft, everything is just conceptual. It's hypothetical. You need a first draft to start writing, really. And for that, you need to do volume. This is what
he says in the War of Art as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And most writing advice says that. So rather than worrying about what you're writing is, whether what you're writing is good or not, the idea of NaNoWriMo is to focus on quantity and to write 50,000 words in a month. And so that equates to about, it's like 1,350 or 1,333 words a day in 30 days, right?
Yeah.
So I was practicing to write up to that, and seeing how much I could write in an hour, and writing random ideas. And I have a bunch of stuff that could become stories. And I was looking at, what do I want to write about? And of course, I didn't figure out what I was going to write about until then the 1st of November came around, and I had been writing for a couple of months already to get ready, and I still wasn't ready, and I didn't know what I was writing about. I had no idea. And I think it was on the 3rd of November, I was like, okay, space pirates, let's write about space pirates. And then very quickly, because the thing about the gardening is I can write with an idea, but then I have to start planning, because at some point I run out of steam, but I couldn't run out of steam because I needed to keep writing. The whole goal was to produce quantity. And so very quickly I was writing the goal of every day, but literally just made no sense. It goes nowhere. It's just completely, it's a random collection of scenes. And I forced myself a few months later, it took months to reread what I wrote. And I was like, that makes no sense. Now, there are bits and pieces inside that I'm like, that little bit I could probably reuse to do something. But I didn't have a complete story. The whole thing just really it makes no sense whatsoever.
Did you have a title?
So anyway, all that to say that I was writing regularly there because I had that goal. I was writing regularly when I was meeting. We had a call with our friend Lauren and you. Was even earlier.
Yeah.
No, that was later. Sorry, that was later. That was 2016. And I spent time writing at that point because I had that support structure and I was making promises about what I was writing about and writing articles. 2015, I wrote a lot of my newsletters that were long form writing. Well, they were like 1,500 to 2,000 words every week for not a whole year, but most of a year. I've been told again I should write my newsletter again, but I haven't published it. I've put it to the side for a while. Anyway, so all that to say that unless I have a commitment, which I'm starting again now with you and these calls, I easily just, sit on the couch and read stuff, absorb information, TV shows, and like that.
So
drink wine,
maybe
beer.
maybe not like note taking or something. Maybe something about. So this episode has loosely been about titles. Maybe
loosely.
about something very loosely. Maybe something about starting, opening sentences. What makes a good opening? Something like that. Could
Maybe.
be. We'll talk about that. For what you wrote in National Novel Writing Month, did you have a title, or was it just Space Pirates? And then you wrote.
I can't remember. I think I get the adventures of the character name Dara. I can't remember.
The Adventures of whoever. Okay.
Yeah, Captain Dar. I think it was his name. I'm not sure. I'm not sure there was a title.
Okay, so
I can go back and check my notes and find out.
Do you know where they are? You still have them?
Yeah, they're on my computer. Sure. Let me see. Let me check now. Probably somewhere around here, I guess.
The Adventures of Captain Dar.
NaNoWriMo 2014. Characters, reading notes, main, plotting, setting.
Wow, you did have some. So while you're looking, I'm saying I'm going to write up the short stories and write up Dark Splendor on the Green.
Great.
For next week or whenever we speak next.
So are you up for playing a game next week, or do you want to do that later?
No, let's play a game next week. I'm just saying I'll finish those things for next week or whenever we speak next, assuming it is next week. And what game are we gonna play?
We're gonna play Cthulhu Confidential.
Oh, that sounds good.
Yeah.
And you're gonna.
So we're gonna play a game of wait, where's my? I don't have a title, at least on the document I just opened. It just says prologue.
Oh, okay.
I have to check the other documents with the setting and everything, if there's a title, I'm not sure. Cthulhu Confidential is a game, a tabletop role-playing game with a system called Gumshoe 1-to-1. Okay. Gumshoe is a role-playing game system that is designed for investigations and mysteries.
Okay.
And this genre of the game is called Cthulhu Confidential. Is made to emulate. So it's the game system is designed for one player, one game master. So I'm going to be the game master, and you're going to be the player.
Yep.
And it's designed to emulate film noir. It's because film noir usually the protagonist is a lone wolf, is on his own. It's not
so
part of a group.
This is going to be dark and gritty.
Yeah, it's going to be dark and gritty with an undertone of supernatural because there's the Cthulhu element.
Okay, cool. Yes.
So you're going to be you will be playing. I can't remember his name right now. I have to go check. A Bogart style detective. And if you want, you can watch one of the classics of film noir, and I have some. I can share them with you to get into the style.
What are the classics?
Double Indemnity is usually considered to be one of the very best of the genre.
Okay.
There's The Big Sleep is one of the big famous ones.
Okay.
So last year when I was reading the book and preparing for the game, and I watched Double Indemnity, which is fantastic. The Big Sleep, the Maltese Falcon is part of that. It was also genre. I'm trying to remember another one. Out Out of the Past or Out from the Past. I can't remember. Something like
Okay.
that. That was
All
really
right.
good as well.
No, cool. And you're gonna prep that? Are you gonna write an article or share
Yeah,
something? Or
I'll write an article. I'll still keep up with my current writing. Atomic Habit style is write at least one sentence of fiction every day. So I'm going to start a new fiction project and probably spend a bit more time on this one. I have another friend, James, who is in the writing group, who is a copywriter by trade, creative director. He offered to reread the short story as well. So I'll have a think if I rewrite a little bit of it before I send it to him. And one thing, I might spend a bit of time. Actually, I will spend. Actually, no. You know what? I'm going to write all this down. Otherwise, you're going to forget.
Well, me too. So where's my list? Today is the 13th. So I'm going to type up those 3 short stories I had, put them on my blog, and finish Dark Splendor on the green.
So I'm going to write.
It's cool.
So sentence of a short story or fiction. Fiction is what I wanted to say.
Every day?
Every day. So I'm going to reread and rework a little bit on the Urban Purpose short story before I share it with other James. Reread notes and stories I wrote in the past. See if there's something I want to write on, work on. And write a LinkedIn one post short and one article a bit longer, which I may post to my blog or LinkedIn or Medium.
And French or?
French. In
Great.
Français.
And
let's go with that.
Yeah.
You know what I should do is make a promise for new business contacts. It's different, but I'll just make a promise for that. I will
125.
No, I mean, I'm gonna start small because I haven't made. I've been thinking about it this week and I didn't put it together, and so I'm gonna do 5 in the week.
Cool.
I mean, I could do more, but let's promise small.
Right. This episode has been about titles. Dark, gritty, edgy titles.
Thank you. It's been fun.
It has. Thank you.